Welcome to another Yorkton story, our look at Yorkton's past and present. My name is Dick DeReich. Our podcasts are available on our website, yorktonstories.ca, where you will also find photos, links, and other information associated with each podcast when available. In many cases, you can not only hear the stories, you can also see and read information about the podcast topics. We can be found in all major podcast directories, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, TuneIn and Alexa, and iHeartRadio. Search for Yorkton Stories, and you will find us. Back in the late 1960s, when I was the news editor of the Yorkton Enterprise weekly newspaper, I was hiring a student as a part-time reporter. I was reminded of that recently when I had a conversation with Perry Ehrlich, now a mostly retired lawyer in Vancouver, with a second career in performing arts, about which we talk in this podcast. Our family lived on 2nd Avenue North at the time, and his family was just up the street, in a big house on the east side of the street, just before the Anglican Church. His parents owned and operated Yorkton Sask Dry Cleaners on 1st Avenue. I was familiar with Perry because when we printed the results of the annual music festival in Yorkton, his name was ever present. There were several teenagers who showed up in those results regularly besides Perry, David McIntyre, Susan Ostransky, Wayne Perrin among them. As Perry mentions in our podcast, David McIntyre went on to teach in the music department at Simon Fraser University. He was there for 38 years, and since his retirement in 2017, has devoted his time to writing music. When we talked about this podcast, Perry reminded me that he had applied for a reporter job, but I didn't hire him, something that had not stayed in my memory until he mentioned it. Maybe just as well. He might have been bitten by the highly infectious newspaper bug. Instead, he went on to a successful law career on the West Coast with the firm Con Zach Ehrlich Lithwich. But that wasn't all he did. His love of music and performing stayed with him. 30 years ago, he founded Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance, a one-month music camp held twice each summer, attracting kids from literally around the world who learn vocal technique, acting, choreography, set construction, makeup, and costuming. He also has a performing troupe of teenagers called ShowStoppers, who appear year-round in concerts, on TV and radio, and at numerous conventions, awards dinners, galas, sporting events, and corporate and charitable events throughout British Columbia. It has been called the Vancouver iteration of Glee, for those who remember that popular television show about musical teens that aired from 2009 to 2015. But just maybe, Glee was the Hollywood version of ShowStoppers and its predecessor sound sensation, which preceded Glee by 15 years. There is much more to the story of Perry Ehrlich, Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance, and ShowStoppers than the conversation I had with him in this podcast. On our website, yorktonstories.ca, you will find links to more information. In particular, I would encourage you to read the story that was published in The Advocate in September of 2022, a very detailed and fascinating account in the monthly publication of the Vancouver Bar Association. It's a great read.
What was your entry into piano, vocal, music? What kind of motivated you to get into that as a boy?
I had wonderful teachers, and I went to Victoria School, and my grade 1 teacher, her name was Jean Adamson. And when I was, I think, in grade 2 or 3, Jean asked me to sing in the Yorkton Music Festival. And the song was called Fishing. I sung in the festival, and I placed second in the competition. And the adjudicator made the comment, Perry doesn't have the best voice in the competition, but he obviously loves fishing, and he communicated that. And singing is all about communication. Well, the truth is I hate fishing. But I conveyed the message of the song. And in that competition, I believe it was won by a fellow by the name of Doug Hancock. And I have the esteemed privilege of tying for second with David McIntyre, who went on to be the head of composition at Simon Fraser University. So not too shabby company. So that was on the singing. And from Jean, she nurtured me every year. And then I started to work with Helen Nostransky, who is my grade 5 teacher, and I sung with her. And piano was various teachers. I didn't really have good luck with teachers, piano. They kept leaving town. And finally, I met Bunny Pierce, who is a legend not only in Yorkton, but also here on the West Coast. And Bunny took me under wing and said, you know, you've been held back. And she nurtured me and remained until she passed away, a very, very strong influence in my life. And years ago, the Royal Conservatory of Music ran a competition to choose the best and favorite piano teacher in Canada. And I nominated Bunny, and my nomination got her to win the award. And we went to Toronto together where she won the award. So it was a little bit of Yorkton at the Royal Conservatory of Music at the University of Toronto. It was pretty exciting.
I could imagine. Now, you also kept in touch with Mrs. Nostransky, with Helen Nostransky.
Oh, yeah. Until they died, I wrote yearly letters to Jean Adamson and to Helen Nostransky because they really, you know, they say all it takes is one teacher to show interest in someone and it can change their lives. And those two women did that for me.
Then you went on to university in Saskatoon. I read somewhere that you were making some money to pay for your education by playing in dining rooms.
Oh, the Holiday Inn. The Holiday Inn in Yorkton. Piano stylings with Perry. $1.75 an hour.
You took law at the university and the Greystone Singers.
Yeah, I participated just to have some music in my life.
Then you went on and joined a law firm in Vancouver, where you still are.
Perry is now associate counsel with the firm, not quite retired, but no longer a partner, while still working with his team at the office on issues, as he says, of human interest. But what motivated him 30 years ago to devote considerable time to working with kids in performing arts, while also involved in a busy law career?
Well, you know, I'm no different than the dad or the mom who coach soccer or hockey or volleyball. And what drags them into coaching is they got a kid. Well, in this case, it was my daughter, Lisa, and she was 11 or 12 years old. And she'd been involved in musical theater programs that I wasn't so crazy about. And basically, by working with her, I founded my Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance musical theater camp, which is now in its 30th year. I founded that in the year 1995. But I wanted to create a safe space where kids could be happy, where there's no bullying, where I'm not creating stars. And the kids could have friends that were lifelong friends. And contrary to what you might think, my vision is not to create musical theater stars, because we know that that is not a route to prosperity or even a peaceful life, was just to give kids confidence. Because I know if you can walk on stage and deliver a line or sing a song in front of 300 or 400 people, then your fears about life are gone, whether it's at a job interview or whatever it may be. So what I'm all about is creating self-esteem, and that's how I get there.
So in the summertime, you have 2 camps, each about a month long or 3 weeks long. Kids come from where? All over?
All over. We've had them from Abu Dhabi. We've got a girl from Ohio this year. We've got kids come from Kelowna and from Calgary. We've had them from this points in the States. We've had them from Israel. We've had them from Austria. They come from all over. You know, often we've had Vancouver's called Hollywood North. So we have had a lot of kids who are here with their parents producing movies in Vancouver, and the parents are looking for where to send their kids during the summer, so they send them to me.
And have you had anybody from Yorkton?
Actually, yes. Interestingly, there was a family that moved from Yorkton to outside of Vancouver, and Gloria Mitchell, who's also a saint in the music world and certainly nurtured me. She lives on the island now. And when she heard that this family was moving from Yorkton to Vancouver, she said, well, you got to check out Perry. And they had a couple children who came to my musical theater camp for a couple years, I believe.
A connection from back home.
For sure.
When they come for a camp, what does it all involve? It's very comprehensive, I understand.
I have about 9 or 10 faculty members, 2 music directors, 4 or 5 choreographers, 2 directors. The sets are built. We have a costume coordinator. And basically, it's an 18-day process. We put a 2-hour show together in 12 days, and then we run it for 3 shows at the end. I'm an old school guy. So I've always believed that if you set high expectations for your children, they achieve them. And when you accept mediocrity, that's what you get left with, just mediocrity. So at the end of every day, we say the same thing. I didn't come here to be average. I came here to be awesome. Because that's what I want them to walk away with. It's run like a high school, and the kids are 9 to 19, and on the stage, the 9-year-olds are doing what the 19-year-olds are doing. And, they'll get 5 or 6, 7, 8 classes a day in each of the disciplines with different people. And then it all comes together with a show, and they all have parts in the show, and they all sing various musical styles, and everything's choreographed. So it's a lot of fun.
Do you write the shows, or are they existing scripts that you?
Well, most of the shows I write. The particular one we're doing this year called Dollars and Nonsense, and I'm not allowed to really give the plug, but it's a famous game. I believe it's Parker Brothers, and there are hotels and motels and a banker and do not pass go. So this year, the game comes to life, and there's a story that's told that takes place on that particular board.
And then in August, another group does it.
Yeah, another group with the same show.
ShowStoppers is a performance group as opposed to the camp where it's a learning type of situation. Are those older kids?
Well, basically, I take the best kids that have been at Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance. And best means not only the most talented, best means that the kids come from a supportive family environment, ethical and commitment core. And we perform professionally 20 or 30 times a year. And I work with the kids vocally, and I bring in music directors, and I bring in choreographers, and we all work for a common purpose, and then the kids go out and perform.
You mentioned the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. They were involved in the Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. We had 13 shows. It was really an unbelievable time. First of all, it started earlier on because a very famous producer of events here by the name of Patrick Roberge, there was a kickoff to the Olympics where all the officials came, and my group performed at that. And then we performed at various venues throughout the city, at hockey games, at the figure skating championships, in Robson Square, at the Oval. And as sort of a carrot for the kids, they often got to see the event that was taking place. So one of our most exciting times is we performed we're in the figure skating pairs competition. We were sitting in an area where after each of the pairs performed, they came to sit with us, and her name has just slipped my mind. She's tall and beautiful and Australian. Nicole Kidman. Yep. Nicole Kidman and her now husband from American Idol, Keith Urban, were sitting a couple rows beside us. So it was like a highlight.
I could imagine, especially for young kids. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, they're older. Like the kids are basically 14 to 19.
You have also, or your group has also, I was checking on your website, Barry Manilow, Foreigner,
Yep.
the Nylons.
We've done many shows with Foreigner. They keep asking us to perform I Want to Know What Love Is with them, and we love it. We just did it a couple months ago. In addition, there's a country star by the name of Eric Church, and we performed with Eric Church. And I showed up from my law office in a suit and a tie. And the first thing he said to me is, well, Perry, you're coming out with the kids. And I said, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. And I says, well, look at how I look. And he says, well, take out the coat and the tie. And he gave me his vest to wear during the show.
Was that the first time you've looked like a country and Western type?
Not only the first time, the only time. We rehearse on Sundays for 2 or 3 hours. We perform 20 or 30 times. Like we performed on Canada Day, we had 2 shows, one in Richmond, one in North Vancouver, which were amazing. And prior to that, we performed with Universal Gospel Choir at the Vancouver Playhouse. And then we performed with Foreigner. And, you know, Christmas, which is the fact that I'm Jewish, Christmas is the big time for us. And we've done many, many shows at the Pacific National Exhibition, and it's been great.
You've done composition and writing as well.
It's sort of a fun part of what I do. You know, I don't do it often, but I've written like theme songs for Sport BC, and I've written things for the Variety Club Telethon that have, you know, been successful. And years ago, there's a famous children's performer by the name of Charlotte Diamond. And Charlotte approached me, and I wrote a song for her called One Dream. The opening line of that song is, I have but one dream, never appreciating that I was really writing a song that echoed the feelings of Martin Luther King. And so Charlotte's made a bundle of money, I think, because the Martin Luther King organization is locked onto the song.
You've also worked with Sherry Lewis, who some people will remember was very famous on Canadian television, at least.
She was an international star, and she was really a lovely lady. Lovely, lovely lady. And when she came to Vancouver, because of my association with knowing all these performing kids, she says, you know, I want Perry to supply the kids, and I wanted him to train them for the recording sessions, and I did.
She was a ventriloquist.
Yeah, exactly. Lamb chop. Charlie.
Lamb chops. That's right. Yeah. I want to also talk about your father, because I knew your father, David, when he and your mother operated Yorkton Sask Dry Cleaners on First Avenue.
The longest name in dry cleaning history.
Yeah. Well, they did shorten it to Sask, but yeah. And when they left here, they went to Richmond, I believe.
Well, they first came to Vancouver, and my dad basically bought one dry cleaning plant after another, and he had a really successful dry cleaning plant in the Lougheed Mall, a Busy Bee, and I think he was age 57. He sold it, retired, and spent the rest of his life golfing. And also, because I don't know if a lot of people knew this, he was a Holocaust survivor. And when Kingstra came out denying that the Holocaust existed, my father went on the speaking circuit to talk about what his experience were during the Holocaust, but also to send messages about racism and intolerance and bullying. And my dad passed away at age 96 last April. And I have often thought how lucky he is not to see what's going on in the world now, because so much about what he lectured about is now happening. And somebody corrected me and says, no, we need David Ehrlich now to remind us. So they sent him all over British Columbia to areas where there were white supremacists and anti-Semites. And they sent him there to talk, because my father spoke in a kind, mature, compassionate way about life. And it really, really made a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Obviously, the Holocaust was an unmentionably large impact on his life, but he preached tolerance, as I understand.
Oh, yeah, 100%. what my father was all about is that you just need to be kind to everybody else and to respect who they are and their beliefs. And, being a Jewish family when there were only like 8 or 9 Jewish families in Yorkton was not easy. But in me, he built up confidence and pride in who I was. And, there's a lot of people who spend their lives trying to be like everyone else, where he really emphasized the importance on us fulfilling our own missions in life and being the type of person that we wanted to be.
And bringing joy through music and dance is obviously one of your missions in life.
I think in me that there's a need to give back. Every year, there's a kid who comes through the doors. It may be that there may be mental illness, or there was one year there were 4 mothers who put their children and got to sing, got to dance because they were all going through chemotherapy for breast cancer. And they all came at the end of the day and sat in the back and listened to the kids sing. And they said, "This is our therapy. This is our therapy."
Watch for and listen to another podcast next month. Visit yorktonstories.ca to hear this and all previous podcasts. And there you can also sign up to our email list so we can let you know when a new podcast is available. And you can support us with a donation if you wish to help defer the cost of the technology behind the podcasts. Thanks for listening. Your comments and suggestions are always welcome. Get in touch through our website or by emailing Dick, D-I-C-K, at yorktonstories.ca. Join us again for more conversations about Yorkton.